I'm joined today by Sir Julian Young, one of our international keynote speakers at INCOSE's 33rd International Symposium to be held this year in Honolulu, Hawaii from the 15th to the 20th of July. Welcome, Sir Julian. Thanks for joining us today and committing to speak at IS2023 in Hawaii.
JB, thanks very much indeed for having me. I'm really excited at the prospect of seeing everybody, and the location just makes it all the more special. So thank you.
Indeed. So Julian, could you tell us a bit about your motivation for joining and continue to serve in the RAF for the majority of your career?
Well, as I look back, I retired from the Royal Air Force just over 2 years ago, and I joined at the age of 18. I had a thoroughly enjoyable career. Never certainly expected to stay as long as I did. It was always the next job looked really quite interesting. The next posting looked really quite interesting. I got promoted along the way and ended up as the Royal Air Force's chief engineer for my last 4.5 years, with a seat on the Air Force board and responsibility for the acquisition of all of the MOD's fixed wing aircraft. So it was just a great career, and just one step led to the next, and don't know quite where all the time went.
That's fascinating, Julian. I must admit, personally, I've had a fascination for flight as well, which drove my career, so I completely empathize and I'm quite envious. Could you perhaps touch on some of the greatest challenges that you saw as you progressed through your career, and some of the initiatives that you might have taken to try and overcome some of those challenges?
I think the greatest challenge that engineers face these days, and I think the issue is becoming more prevalent, is to try and keep up with technology. I think for engineers perhaps of my vintage, one has a great big slug of education. For me, it was that sponsored to go to university by the Royal Air Force to study air transport engineering. And it is that continued professional development that has got me into the professional engineering institution world, and the requirement to maintain one's professionalisation. That I think is the greatest challenge. It was a different world back in the early 1980s. We didn't really do much computing. The language that we were learning was Fortran. Nobody really understands any of that these days. And the real difficulty is actually tying in the cutting edge technology with that was actually valid 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, needing to join it all together. And for me, that's what systems engineering is all about. And that is why I think it's one of the greatest challenges as we look to the future.
To finish off with, Julian, could you give us a bit of a hint on what you will be talking about at your keynote address at the IS 2023 coming up in Hawaii?
I've always thought that systems engineers truly are superheroes, and hence the Wonder Woman and Superman methodology. The reality is many of our customers don't always see us as that. They, quite frankly, don't care how the work gets done, how the solutions are arrived at. All they're really interested in is the outcomes. And I think that perhaps we could spend a little less time in actually trying to convince them all that systems engineering is the way forward, but to actually just get on and deliver. You know, it's our world. I think that what we keep within our own world is probably sufficient. I appreciate that could be seen as controversial, but the reality is that's what I think. And I would love to hear what the delegates think once I've given the keynote. So thank you.
Thank you, Julian. It's been a real pleasure catching you. I'm really looking forward to your keynote presentation at the 33rd International Symposium in Hawaii. Thank you so much for making the time to speak today, and all the best in your future endeavors. See you in Hawaii shortly.
Well, thanks very much indeed, JB. I'm really looking forward to it.